Buenos días a todos. Hoy día quiero hablar sobre un tópico para mí está muy interesante y muy importante, yo creo, para todos nosotros. Por la parte del tiempo, yo quiero probablemente hablar en inglés, porque mi español no es tan malo, pero por el tiempo creo mejor en inglés. So, muchas disculpas para eso. Like any presentation from a junior mining company, we need to have a disclosure statement. So first of all, just a little bit about why am I talking about geologic mapping? Because many of you will know that I've been working here in Chile and in Peru for a junior exploration company. But really, my career started closer to 40 years ago, and I've been doing geologic mapping for the last 35 of those years. In various parts of North and South America. I also spent 13 years working for the Geological Survey of Canada and the Ontario Geological Survey, principally as a mapping geologist and studying and mapping mineral deposits. Also, I came, part of my PhD was mapping an area 300 by 300 kilometers in size in Ontario and Canada at 1 to 50,000 scale. I came to Chile originally in '97 with Barrick Gold, specifically to do district-scale mapping of the Pascua-Lama El Indio district at a scale of 1 to 10,000. I also was involved with district-scale mapping for Anglo Gold of their Cerro Vanguardia district, and also did district-scale mapping for the Rio Grande district in northwestern Argentina. So, mapping is my background, and I think mapping is absolutely critical, and I'll try to demonstrate that to us today. But as a disclaimer, always beware. This talk will be slightly different than many talks you've probably heard, in that in order to keep you engaged and entertained to a certain degree, and I've already asked the hotel staff whether we can use the sprinklers if I see anybody dozing off, and they've assured me I can't. So what I've tried to do is make a talk that really tries to address, I think, some very important points, but also in a somewhat humorous fashion. So first, the questions. The principal question we asked is the art of geologic mapping lost? And these days, it seems like nobody wants to go to the field anymore. And the second question is, should we care? So, to cut to the chase, let's answer the questions right up front. First of all, should we care? The answer is emphatically yes, we should care. And I hopefully will demonstrate to you why we should care. And the answer to the first question, is it a lost art? Well, I would suggest that it's not lost yet, but we're quickly on the path of extinction of geologic mappers. And we'll join the likes of the woolly mammoth, the dinosaurs, and the dodo birds if we don't change our outlook and our perception about the importance of geologic mapping to our success as an industry. So the objective of this talk is to show that geologic mapping is good. No, it's not good. It's critical to our success. Basic definition from Wikipedia, because that seems to be where all the information is these days, is a geologic map or geological map is a special purpose map made to show geologic features, rock units, geologic strata, shown by colors, symbols, bedding planes, structures, foliations, you name it. I think we'd all agree that's what a geologic map is. However, the maps that actually get produced by many geologists are not really geologic maps. Why make a map? Well, there's some obvious reasons. This is a bit of an extreme reason, but maybe geologic maps tell us something about where we should be and where we need to be in our exploration. A geologic map really is a piece of data that shows us factually where information is located. And we need to distinguish the factual information from the interpretive information. And through my career, I've reviewed many projects and looked at, and the first thing I always do when I go to a project is I look for the geologic map. And the geologic map tells me a lot, not just about the geology of the project, it tells me about the geologists that worked on that project. Because in many cases, you can tell whether the geologic map was done properly, and that gives you an indication as to how maybe the exploration was done as well. And when I see bad geologic maps, that actually, to me, as an explorationist, is an opportunity. Because that tells me the guy that did it didn't know what he was doing, to be quite frank. Okay? Maps also, and I would put into this geologic cross-sections as well, are really important. Most people think of geologic maps as a guy going out and walking in the field and mapping outcrops on the surface. But as you know, in many places, here in Chile and other parts of the world, there are no outcrops. So we have to rely on geophysical data and drill hole data. Well, drill hole data is like outcrop information. It just happens to be long, cylindrical, and skinny. Okay? But it's like an outcrop. It's a real factual data point. And so when we talk about geologic mapping, we're not just talking about walking on the surface and banging on outcrops. We're talking about looking at drill holes and interpreting drill holes. That's geologic mapping as well. And these models allow us to build our models that Bill Chavez talked about in the morning. They also allow us to develop theories on how the deposits are controlled, and hopefully we can use these as predictive tools to help us on location, size, shape, grade, and potential of areas. They are also an essential tool in developing three-dimensional and four-dimensional concepts about the geology and the mineralization. And one of the things I'm going to touch on is that there's a prevalence of geologists coming out of universities today that have no idea how to think in three dimensions. They think the computer does all that for them. But at the end of the day, the human being has to think in three dimensions. So why make a map? Well, making a map, I think we'd all agree here, is usually one of the first things we do when we go to a property. We do the field work, we build the map. Based on the map, we make interpretations of both the surface and sectional geology if we have drill hole information. On the basis of that, we build three-dimensional models and do data integration. We generate targets. We drill the targets, and with some success, we make a discovery. It remains an important control document for all the other data sets that we collect. We always, I'm probably going to insult some geophysicists here, and Jeremy, sorry, but one of the first questions I always get from geophysicists when I'm giving them a job is, well, do you have any geology maps you can give us? Well, if I had a geology map, why the hell would I need the geophysics? You know, like it's sort of, we need good geologic maps for the basis of interpreting all our data. And that includes geophysical data, geochemical data, and so on. It's also a very important part of any mine development. The mines need to know where the faults are, where the different hardness or lithologic units are, where the distribution of the assay values are, and where the grade is and where the grade isn't, where the arsenic is and where the arsenic isn't. Those all need to put into a geological context, which requires building geologic maps. So, at the end of the day, making a geologic map is absolutely fundamental skill for any exploration or mine geologist. Are maps important? I found this quote very interesting from the American Geological Institute. Geologic maps are the most important and complete compilation of information about the solid Earth we live on, and we cannot understand the Earth without them. We use geologic maps and the fundamental information they provide in many ways. We always think of it from an exploration point of view, but these geologic maps actually are very important for knowing where there are geologic hazards. This would be excellent information to know for the north of Chile with the recent disaster up there with the heavy rainfall. So you can produce natural hazard maps. And of course, the way we normally look at them for finding new mineral resources. But geologic maps are absolutely fundamental to we as human beings and how we exist on this planet Earth. A quote from some well-known geos, Brimhall, Dillis, and Profit, in a paper they published in 2006, geologic mapping has been used extensively for exploration for more than 100 years. And it will continue to do so. And although the techniques have changed, there's more high technology involved, there still requires somebody to go out and actually look at rocks. I don't expect you to read all this, but the GSA, the Geological Society of America, actually put out a position statement regarding the value of geologic mapping. And the key takeaways are that they felt that teaching geologic mapping skills and methodologies is important and deserves our full support and recognition by both academic institutions but also companies. Geoscientists, and that's most of us sitting here today, should engage students in geologic mapping activity to maximize and extend practicable and should strongly support teaching of geologic mapping. We should also be offering and giving money to support geologic mapping field schools and mapping courses and other educational initiatives. Furthermore, geological maps provide a context for testing scientific theories, hypotheses, and models. And that's what really drives exploration. They stimulate scientific thinking, they provoke questioning of different ideas, and they provoke further development of geologic methods and technologies. The preparation of a geologic map, therefore, is a fundamental skill that we should be instilling in all the new graduates that come into our industry. Geological maps are fundamental elements also for informing policy decisions for governmental agencies. In many parts of the world, geology actually plays a big part in the way governments make decisions. And so it's not just about resource development, there's a much more broad application as well. Why are they important? Well, the geologists, we all know, working with geological maps enhances our ability to think in 3 dimensions and reinforces the relationships, both temporal and spatial, for different geologic units and structures within the area that we're working. We also know that it allows us to become more familiar with micro to macroscopic scale features, and that these all allow us to better position ourselves to understand where mineralization fits into the geologic evolution of that particular part of the Earth's crust. There's also a value to the public and society. Despite the impact of geology on just about every person who walks this planet, most of those people are ignorant as to the value of geology and geologic maps. So only by knowing where materials and resources are and how geological processes work can we minimize potential geohazards and maximize social benefits of where we know there are to find known resources. And the only way to do this is a message to the corporate heads that might be in this room, is we need to collect geologic information, and that typically is a very labor-intensive, time-consuming, and sometimes expensive proposition because we need to do geologic mapping. Field mapping schools, do we need them? I think yes, because field mapping schools for students have been under a lot of, here in South America, they virtually don't exist. And in other parts of the world where they used to be a very strong part of the academic curriculum, they've been severely cut back for a number of different reasons. One being that there's been a decrease in the exploration industry over the last few years and the need for skilled mappers. There's also seems to be, for me, an alarming tendency now in the academic circles to move towards, away from observational field-based studies to more experimental theoretical research. And I think this is a big mistake. I think we need to make sure that we're always well planted in good, sound observational field studies. For many years, the numbers of graduating students coming from schools the schools have eliminated or consolidated their field camps. And then finally, obviously, these field camps have become much more costly to run. Transportation's more costly. And the biggest issue is liability insurance if somebody gets hurt while they're on one of these field camps. So a lot of universities have decided to just forget doing field camps because they're just too much of a headache and too much of a liability, quite frankly. In the faces of these changes, is there a place for field camp in the future of geoscience education? And I would say yes, there is. And the reason there is because field schools and training and field mapping are much different. They show that rocks in the classroom sometimes are comparatively simple compared to the complexity of rocks in the real world in the field. Likewise, field mapping demands acquisition and interpretation of data. And such exercises typically illustrate the problems, the real world problems to students that not all is perfect in the real world and the world of geology in the field. It also forces students, our future of our industry, to arrive at well-founded interpretations based on sometimes incomplete data or data that has a limited amount of time for analyses. These field-based exercises provide students with a real taste of really what the future of their profession is going to be. Of equal importance is also the experience in team building, which is essential when you're working in the field and also working as an explorationist in our business. The days of somebody going off solo with a donkey and a shovel, although may still be romantically, typically we work in disciplined and multidisciplinary teams. And so you need to be able to work with people. But the reality today is students coming into our industry may know the theory, but in many cases are not practiced on how to evaluate and then represent their interpretations of the Earth's history. Really, you need a combination of theory and practice. Many are also unable to think in 3 dimensions, or better yet, 4 dimensions when you add time, which is essential to all geologic work and to exploration success. So training the brain to think in 3 dimensions. The lack of good mapping skills has created geologists reliant on computer applications to produce maps. Somehow, these 3-dimensional models look beautiful, they have nice colors, but are they right? Are they really reflecting what the reality in the field is? In many cases, they are not. Unfortunately, computers can only produce what they have been programmed to do. And computers yet do not have the ability to visualize and interpret data as we humans can. So it's the old story, garbage in, garbage out. So for me, there's no substitute for learning your mapping skills in the field, even though you may never use those skills as a mapper in your career. In Canada, two organizations which I had the privilege of working for, the Geological Survey of Canada and the Ontario Geological Survey, you can go to their web pages, and they both have very clearly stated programs where, as a student, you can enroll to work on a mapping program for the summer, 3, 4, 5 months. And having worked for the survey for 13 years, my crews of people were always university students who wanted to get field experience and learn about geologic mapping. To my knowledge, I checked the CERNA GeoMin website, and I didn't see any such programs here in Chile. So that'll be one of the things I think that can be contemplated and improved to help us in this situation of the dying art of geologic mapping. So what does Chile need for the next great discovery? Utilizing the tools is the name of the session, and one of those that I'd say is revitalization of geologic mapping. We need funding and mentoring programs. Increase funding and more adequate time allocations to do geologic mapping. I can't tell you the number of times I've been to projects or worked for companies when they said, okay, you got a week to map this area, and I tell them, well, actually, it's probably going to take us 6 months. And the look on the face of the exploration manager with eyes to kill. There's no way you're going to spend 6 months. Well, one case and example I can give you is at Cerro Vanguardia. I was hired as a consultant to map the district, and I was told 2 weeks. And I went there and I told them, I said, well, I think it's going to take a little longer. And they said, well, how much longer do you think it's going to take? And I said, well, probably it's going to take you a year to map it the way the area and the information that you need to collect to be successful. And of course, that drew a lot of really almost some profanities out of some of the people in the meeting. And I said, look, let's do this. I'll come down there for a month. I'll do it the way I think you guys need to do it. We can look at what the products look like, and then you guys can decide. And if you guys decide you don't think it's worth continuing, we part friends, and that's the way it is. They ended up committing. It took us 1 year and 6 months to complete that map. And that mapping, we were able to, they had, at the time when I started, we had 90 kilometers of known veins. It's a low sulfidation gold vein system. There was 90 kilometers of veins delineated. And when we finished the mapping, we had defined 140 kilometers. So we did more than a 50% increase in the number of prospective veins that had never, ever been explored. And we also added a great amount of information regarding stratigraphy and structure to allow them to be able to predict which units were more favorable and which ones weren't. So there was a case where it worked really well. We need to pressure universities to start or restart fundamental field schools. And we need government surveys to continue or start mentoring programs for geologic mapping. Hire students to help out with the field mapping activities so they understand and can be trained. Same thing within industry. We as an industry need to do much better at mentoring people and putting geologic mapping at a much higher priority than it currently is. Corporate awareness and support. Being a corporate leader now, I understand this, and I'm pressing upon those out there who are also corporate leaders that we need to increase the awareness and the importance of good geologic mapping and its impact on the future of our exploration success and improved exploitation at our operations. Having field geos working out mapping means it's good for the overall bottom line. Getting the right people. New recruits to the industry need a passion for being in the field, working on or looking for ore. For the students that are out there today, no estudiar geología, because tú piensas es un trabajo para ganar el más alto sueldo. Esta no es la razón para entrar a este negocio. Es que tú tienes pasión por las rocas y tienes pasión para estar allá en terreno. Esa es la razón. Y cuando tú tienes esta actitud, tú tienes mucho éxito en este negocio. New recruits must be tough in the field and enjoy it. and not worry about working in hard conditions. We've now come on a time when everybody wants to be home every weekend. I mean, it's great, but unfortunately, our business demands that we spend a lot of time in the field looking at and understanding and listening to rocks. And unfortunately, those rocks aren't in your backyard. They're quite typically hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers away. They must be able to get along with a range of people, work in teams, and cope with high levels of responsibility early on in your career. Field mapping provides us, our industry, with well-rounded geologists whose minds are specially adapted to thinking out complex three-dimensional and four-dimensional problems. Increasing those skills will be required for the next generation of great discoveries, both here in Chile and abroad. So, mapping is the key to our future discovery. We need more geologic mapping. Exploration and mining is like a house of cards, and it's built on fundamentals of geologic mapping, facts, rocks, and also social license. And it's really easy to think that we can just cut geologic mapping as the first thing, but recognize that when we do so, it impacts everything else that we do in our business. Everything is based on rocks, and the rocks, the only way we can understand those is through geologic mapping. So, this is the state of the union, and what I'm saying to the geologists out there is we need to take back control of our business. It's very typical that most companies are run by lawyers and accountants, and they don't really understand or want to understand what we do as field geologists, and they don't give us very much credibility in what we do. And I think that we need to change the tide and become more owners of our own business. So, my final message is to all of you, geologic mapping is critical to our success as a business. And don't ever forget, and that's why it was nice to see in the morning references that exploration is a business. It's not a hobby, it's a business. For many of you who didn't know, I found this quite interesting, is in the state of Missouri in the United States, they actually have a geologic map day. And it's October 18th. And so I'm going to ask Ian to provide me with the email address of everybody in this room so that on October 18th I can send you a happy geological map day email that you can put in your trash folder. So, muchas gracias por tu atención. And I think that hopefully I've tried to convey to you today that geologic mapping is indeed one of the fundamental building blocks of our industry, and that if we don't start to react and change the course of the way things are going now, we're going to be in a much deeper trouble than we think we're in right now. And things are bad right now, but they're going to get a lot worse if we don't do our homework with regards to geologic mapping and collecting geologic data. Thank you.